Hello all, and welcome to Inspire Meetup number 12. It's absolutely awesome to have you guys here. If you haven't been to an Inspire Meetup before, it's where every week we bring you an inspiring personal message to help young families use their small business to achieve big goals. And it's absolutely awesome to have our special guests here, Lindsay, who will introduce you guys to in a second. But this has to be one of the biggest ones we've had.
Yeah, great team.
Actually got a cool little announcement. We started our Inspire Meetups 12 weeks ago, which was when Ben and I came into business together, essentially. And if you aren't aware, upstairs Inspire CA is our accounting firm, and we exist to help young families use their small business to achieve big goals. And this is a chance for us to share the ideas and strategies and inspire each other along that journey. And we've had these meetups every week, and it was actually Joe Winston. Where are you, bro? So Joe, if you guys haven't met Joe, he's the head of Yellow Bucket Marketing, and he's responsible for the marketing that we do here. And it was his idea to bring this type of event together. And fast forward 12 meetups. Any ideas how many people we've had through our doors for our meetups? 300. 3,000. So today, Jess tells me that with everybody in the room, that we're total 185.
Wow!
Absolutely awesome. So again, the mission here is to be inspired, and hence our name. And that's not just to be inspired just from the speaker that we have here, but to be inspired from those who we meet. So I encourage you guys, let's listen to Lindsay's message, let's implement and apply it, but after that, let's make an effort to go and meet others who are here. Speaking of which, there's Freddie who's in the room. Do you want to come over here, Freddie? Because you sponsored a Lucky Door prize today.
Well done!
Barbecue, so everything is mine as long as it's in the house. And, Freddie he's a wealth coach, and he shares our office with us. And a lot of the financial planning side of things is done under Freddie's guidance.
I've already tried it, it's pretty good. I've got a wine breaker. It just, anyway. I'd like to give wine away, and see some technical place.
That's it. So make sure that you guys have all registered at the front door with Jessica. Jess, can you wave out? Jess is our community and events manager. If you haven't been blessed by her, then you need to do so. And at the end, we'll draw it out. We might get Lindsay to give us a hand with that. And someone will walk away with this. How do you pronounce this one?
Doesn't have his glasses.
He's drunk.
Very drunk whole bottles.
That's what the other side is. Very good. Okay, bro.
Alright.
We'll grab you afterwards. So it's a pleasure. It's absolutely a pleasure to introduce you guys to Lindsay, who is a psychologist, which is very intriguing. And he's also an author. And he's written a really intriguing book, which is why I got him here to speak to us today, called Why Clever People Do Dumb Things. Has anyone ever thought about that question themselves? So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, and thank you for sharing your message with us. So can we make Lindsay welcome?
Okay, so now to try and live up to that hype. Okay, now as a psychologist, clearly I know what you're all thinking. I wish. Okay, so my objective today is to try and give you an insight as to why people don't buy from you, and maybe even the odd insight and clue as to what you might be able to do about it. So this is stuff that's actually not in my book. So what I've decided to do today is any one of you who want a copy of my book, all you've got to do is grab the handout with my card on it and send me an email, and I'm happy to send you a copy of my book for free.
Cool.
Oh, nice.
So if you do that and if you read the book, you'll learn more than I'm about to tell you, because this is something that I've developed since writing the book, and I'm a bit excited about it. Because for the 20 odd years that I've been a psychologist, it's fascinated me as to why clever people do dumb things. And I got to tell you, like Harvey, I'm the pout boy for it, and Chris. Unlike them, I know I'm intelligent. Sorry. Weird psychology humour. Okay, no, they're intelligent too. But it's fascinating me why someone who is intelligent would do dumb things. And that's what the book's about. But now I've got a room full of intelligent people, and I want to try and tell you why intelligent people don't get your message, why they don't buy from you. So if I draw on this, can everyone see it, or will I bring it out a little bit? How's that going to look? Okay, so let me introduce you to you. Put that up there. Let's imagine that this circle represents you. Hopefully we're going to have a healthier pen than that. Now, this represents everything that you know. And let's imagine that the wall behind it represents the sum of all human knowledge. So let me just check how normal you are. Are any of you willing to accept that what you know is smaller than the sum of all human knowledge? Okay? Cool. Now, I also need to tell you that this is not drawn to scale. That if I did, it would be so small that we wouldn't be able to use it. So I've actually blown it up a little. So now that we've had that exercise in group humility, let's talk about what this means. Now, the first thing that we've all just acknowledged is that the stuff that we know is incomplete because there's a whole heap of stuff outside the stuff that we know. That, just to be fair to my diagram, this isn't an accurate representation. That we all know little bits of stuff all over the sum of all human knowledge. So I've just aggregated it into a circle to make it easy to work with, okay? So I'm not saying that you've all got this discrete boundary around your knowledge, even though as the talk goes on, you're going to realise that that's what it feels like. So already we've got, oops, wrong end. We've got an insight into this which indicates that it's incomplete. So the stuff that we know, the stuff that we all take for granted, the stuff that's instantaneously available to us has holes in it. So are we all happy to accept that?
Yes.
Cool. Now this stuff that we know, would any of us be willing to accept that some of the stuff that we know might actually be wrong?
Yes.
Yeah? Any
Yes.
arguments? Happy to take arguments? Cool. So it also is potentially incorrect. And would you also be willing to acknowledge that this body of stuff that you have as knowledge is partly based on opinion rather than fact?
Yes.
Cool. So what we've got is a discrete sum of knowledge that's instantaneously available to us. Knowledge is stuff that we don't actually have to really think much about to get out. You know, 2 times 2 equals 4 is something that we all know, but we don't have to do the mathematical process to get it out. So this is all stuff that's spontaneously available to us. Now there's a very neat bit of your brain that controls this that I introduced to you in my book. And this bit of our brain has a defect. This bit of our brain that actually manages all of our body, that controls, and all of our knowledge that controls us, is actually an idiot. So because it's got access to all this knowledge, it's able to feign intelligence. It's able to look as though it's intelligence. 2 times 2 equals 4. Wow, he's a mathematician. But we don't have to stretch it very far to get to the boundaries of our knowledge. And then that bit of our brain lets us down. We go, oh, I don't know. I mean, just out of curiosity, does anyone know what the 4th prime number is?
Huh?
How can you not know that, guys? So that's something for you to think about, all right? I'm not going to tell you that. It's on my webpage if you need the answer. So yeah, that's just another reason for you to go on my webpage. Okay, so it sounds like we're in agreement that we all have a discrete body of knowledge available to us, that discrete body of knowledge has holes in it, has inaccuracies in it, and is at least partly based on opinion. So that's you. So let me rub the cues out. You're all going to have to remember that later. There'll be a test. Okay. So now let me introduce you to one of your customers. And I'll use a different colour if I can find one. Now, I try to be politically correct when I do this and make them approximately the same size and shape. See, the check's in the mail. Now, everyone's, I'm guessing, seen a Venn diagram before. Anyone who hazard a guess as to what this bit represents, where they overlap?
Same silly intelligence the first one I had.
Sorry?
The same silly intelligence the first one I had.
That's not bad, yeah. It's shared knowledge. It's stuff that if you're in this zone here, in the shaded zone, and you're having a conversation with one of your customers, there will be no disagreement. Your customer will hear every word you say, they'll think you're a genius. Now, from a psychology perspective, I know that this is people's zone of agreement, and it's where people want to live. Now, there's some really neat research that was done to show that if you want someone to like you, the most powerful thing you can do is get them talking about who?
Themselves.
Absolutely. But most of us, when we're having a customer conversation, who or what are we most generally talking about?
Ourselves.
Ourselves and our products. It seems paradoxical, doesn't it? And it is. The reality is that when you engage with a customer, unless you are in that zone, unless they already know you, unless they've engaged with you, unless they are a niche that you actually own and you're the authority in your niche, unless that's present, you're going to be talking in this area here. Now, I actually forgot to tell you what these circles are called. I refer to this as your zone of certainty. This discrete circle of knowledge that you live within is knowledge about which you are certain, even though it's incomplete, incorrect, and full of opinion. You are certain about it. Nobody doubted 2 times 2 is 4, correct? And yet I'm sure there's some non-Euclidean mathematics where you could construct, or maybe even accounting, where you could work out that 2 times 2 doesn't equal 4. So here you come in your zone of certainty, where you don't even have to think about this knowledge. That when it comes to your product or your offering, I mean, who knows more about it than you do? Who's in love with it more than you are? Otherwise you shouldn't be in the business you're doing. So here you come in your zone of certainty and you interact with your customer, who strangely enough is existing in their zone of certainty. And just like your zone of certainty, it contains, it's incomplete, inaccurate, and it includes opinion. So unless you are in agreement with them, which is not particularly common, unless you've got some form of personal, really engaged relationship with them, or unless you really are mining a niche that is yours and you're the authority in it, the chances of you being in that zone of agreement with your customer is almost zero, because they're going to see you as a person trying to take advantage of them. They're going to see that you're not coming up to talk to them because you love them, because they're such a wonderful human being. They get that you see them as a prospect. And I can almost guarantee you that that knowledge is going to sit over here, because whilst they are a prospect, if you are in your business for the long term, you don't see them as a prospect, you see them as a potential ally. You want to have some mutual benefit of the trade between the two of you. You want it almost to be a joint venture, but they don't get that yet, because they potentially see you as an adversary. You agreeing with this, Chris?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so this area here, the big circly bit, we've gone from the zone of agreement into this area here, which is the zone of disagreement. And your zone of certainty that's over here is their zone of disagreement. So when the customer comes in, they've got a set of preconceived ideas that they want to buy your widget for the cheapest possible price, and they know they can get it online for about half the price that you're going to try and sell it to them for. But that's their knowledge. That you know more about the business and your competitors and whatever else is going on. You know that price is the least important determinant. That if they buy the cheap nasty widget, they're going to rue the day. Todd and I were talking about web solutions earlier, and people go for the free stuff that you get online, and they spend a year trying to get it to work and sort it out, and then eventually they've got to spend money, and by then they've become so emotionally connected with the fact that they're never going to get any value out of what's going on with their web stuff, that they've got their zone of certainty includes stuff that you know is wrong, but you've got to overcome it first. But if you come with your solution, and if you tell them stuff, they're not going to hear you, because their zone of certainty is going to filter out what you're saying. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so can anyone kind of anticipate where I'm going with this? How might you be able to get the stuff out of your zone of certainty into the zone of agreement and ultimately into your customer's zone of certainty? Because if you can do that, they're going to buy from you. It's this and this that's stopping them buying from you at the moment. Anyone want to hazard a guess as to how you might do that?
Try and put yourself in their shoes.
Sorry?
Try and put yourself in their shoes.
That's fantastic. So what you're saying...
Feel, felt,
I'm
found.
trying to remember your name, I'm sorry.
SETI. SETI.
SETI, that's right. SETI, what you're saying is that what you try to do is influence your own certainty so that it can be congruent with their certainty. Now that's an awesome thing to try and do. Good luck. The only way that's going to happen is if your connection and engagement with your niche is perfect. If you are your ideal customer, then you can do that. But the harsh reality is, all of your certain knowledge is automated. That your ability to step outside and look at yourself is very, very limited. So for you to try and reinvent your thought processes and your facial expressions and your offering in order to suit perfectly that client that you're trying to convince, I can almost guarantee you, unless you're in the zone of agreement, then you're really up against it. So it's a very noble enterprise to try and do. I commend you for wanting to become a chameleon and be able to engage with every customer. But it's a really big ask. And the fact that we get to do it with the clients that are in our zone of agreement fools us into thinking that we can do it more generally. But the reality is, we can't do it. We can't be all things to all people. And no matter how accurately we've identified our niche, we are still going to find that we'll be in these mutual zones of disagreement. So well done for that. That was a great aspirational thing to do. And don't stop trying to do it. It will endear you to your clients if they see you connecting with them on more levels. But the reality is it's a big ask. Anyone else want to have a go as to how you might do it? Yes, ma'am.
It's just entering the client's map to see where the client is at.
Yep.
And then ask them questions what they actually want.
Awesome. Absolutely fantastic. Now, don't all the rest of you who are thinking that wish you'd spoken up.
That's what I thought about.
Because the secret to moving out of your zone of certainty, to begin to expand the zone of agreement so that you can start to influence and be part of your customer's zone of certainty, is to ask questions. The two things that we humans use least that are the most important things in the world are questions and silence. And unfortunately, when people are trying to convince other people stuff, they almost automatically lapse back into their own zone of certainty, and that means they start to use sentences which end with full stops and exclamation marks. And if the only thing you took away from this was an observation about the way we humans interact, you will find that the overwhelming majority of punctuation marks that we use in our standard conversations are full stops and exclamation marks. And we get away with it because if we've highly engaged with a customer, then our Venn diagram may look like that. And if you've got that much engagement with your customer, you can get away with being emphatic. But that's a long-term relationship. Identical twins who have been together since birth may have a Venn diagram that looks like that. But it's still not perfect. There's still going to be that overlap. Now, there is something that will come to your rescue if you start to use questions. But what I've introduced you to is your zone of certainty. Thankfully, where's the black? Where's the brown? Thankfully, floating around the outside of your zone of certainty is a zone of flexibility. This is where creativity, confusion, curiosity, collaboration lives. And the only real way to get access to your zone of flexibility is to be curious, to have an open mind. That if you are certain of something, if you know something, you are existing in your zone of certainty. Now, if we add the zone of flexibility in for your customer as well, and I've gone off the side of the page there, we now have that big area there, and that's your zone of potential agreement. That if you start the conversation with your potential customer from an open-minded, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Fonga.
Fonga. Beautiful. That if you do what Fonga said to us, if you start to genuinely demonstrate interest in your client, if you start to ask questions, if you have an open mind, now all of a sudden the room for potential agreement doubles, triples, quadruples. And you will find that, as Seti was saying, that you will suddenly find that there'll be a whole bunch of stuff in your zone of certainty that is congruent with what they're saying. That they will tell you things that you were going to tell them anyway. And and that gives you the opportunity to have that collaborative approach. And that's the way that people will start to want to deal with you. Because at the end of the day, who are people most interested in talking about? Themselves. And yet, when we are in a situation where we're trying to sell to people, to influence people, it very rarely occurs to people, unless they're professional salespeople, to actually get the other person talking. This works in job interviews as well, by the way. Am I out of time? Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Lindsay. I think we're all in this zone of agreement that that was just
Design flexibility.
Yeah. Just before we do wrap up, does anyone have one of those question marks instead of a full stop or an exclamation mark to ask Lindsay about that?
This might sound very naive, but that seems to me like common sense.
I agree.
How uncommon is that common sense?
And that's the dilemma about common sense, is that it's so uncommon. One of the theses that I explore in my book is that actually, who's the guy that did the light bulb? Thomas Edison perfected the light bulb. He didn't actually invent it, he perfected it. One of his more famous sayings is 5% of the population thinks, 10% of the population thinks that they think, and the other 85% would die rather than think. And as a psychologist, that's what I do. My job, what I do with 25, 30 clients a week, is I try and activate their zone of flexibility so that they begin to think, they start to use their common sense. And it can be profound. Once people start to think and start to use their common sense, all of a sudden their problems start to fade away. And instead of going home and saying to their wife, "Yeah, rotten bitch, you got it," they go home and they say, "I'm curious as to why you're doing that." And and it's miraculous the kind of things that curiosity can resolve. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much again, Lindsay. I think a great takeaway from that is that people are interested in themselves, so let's go ahead and network and collaborate with each other and ask some questions about the other people you might be.
There'll be no one
Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
So,
Let me ask you a question.
I encourage you guys
Ask
to
you a question.
help me out if you can. If you're open to it, as I announced tonight, we had 185 over the last 12 weeks to inspire meetups. And as you can see on the wall there, we've got a bit of a line-up until the end of the year. Now, our goal is to get to 300 by the time the year is done. So do you think we can do that together?
Yeah, we might bring one
Now,
person.
how could we potentially go from 185 to 300 by the time we get down to Bill Boss, our very last session of the year? Any ideas, any takers?
Bring
Open?
one.
You must do.
You plus two, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good if I had any friends. So you plus two works, accountant. Does you plus two make 300 for us?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
That'll work.
So
Good
do
answer.
you guys mind helping us out with
You're a great accountant.
that? Speaking of, I encourage you to come back next week because we've got Trevor Dixon who's sitting there, who's coming to share his message.
everyone.
Trevor's the founder and chairman of the Small Business Foundation. He's got a really powerful message to share with us about prosperity. So again, I encourage you guys to come back, share some inspiration with each other, and bring the plus twos.